Well, President Trump's massive tax and spending cut bill is one step closer to the finish line. House Republicans are racing to Capitol Hill this morning, where they could vote on the measure as soon as today. The package passed the Senate yesterday by the slimmest possible margin. Vice President JD Vance had to cast the tie-breaking vote. The bill includes big cuts to Medicaid and estimates that millions could lose their health insurance. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski acknowledged her reservations about the measure, but she still voted yes.
Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill.
And Nicholas Wu joins me now. He's a congressional reporter for Politico. Nicholas, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So what does the final Senate bill look like, and how different is it to the version that passed in the House?
Well, the bill that's coming back to the House now, tracks many of the provisions of the Senate bill. I mean, in the broad outlines, it extends many of the 2017 tax cuts. It still pluses up border security and defense spending, but there are some somewhat major details between the two bills when that could cause some problems for it as it comes back. Chiefly among them is the changes that the Senate made to the so-called Medicaid provider tax, which is what a lot of states use to fund their Medicaid programs. The Senate basically is further limiting what states can do with that, and this is something that a lot of Republican lawmakers from districts with high Medicaid enrollment are really concerned about. And so we're closely watching this morning to see whether or not Speaker Johnson has the votes to pass this.
And Nicholas, as we've been talking about this, the fight over the bill is now back in the hands of the House. I want to play what some top House leaders are saying about it. Take a listen.
I encouraged them to amend it as lightly as possible. They went a little further than many of us would have preferred. But we have the product now, and my objective and my responsibility is to get that bill over the line.
Shame on Senate Republicans for passing this disgusting abomination, and shame on House Republicans for continuing to bend the knee to Donald Trump's extreme agenda.
Now, can we get a sense of whether the House will pass this bill as it stands now?
As we speak right now, the House still hasn't yet scheduled a time to vote on this bill. It first has to go through a key procedural vote, and then they'll debate on the bill itself. But last night, the Rules Committee, which is the preliminary panel that sends this bill to the floor, saw two Republicans oppose it and threatened to vote against it on the floor as well. And with the margin in the House so small, Speaker Johnson can't afford to lose more than a handful of votes. So this morning, we're very likely going to see Republican leaders frantically working the phones and trying to get folks to vote for this bill.
And as they're trying to fast track this, there's also severe weather in Washington impacting travel. Could that play a role in whether this bill passes or not?
This is very much a concern for leadership, really, in both parties. I mean, last night, I heard from members of Congress who were stuck in airports, who were frantically finding rental cars. Congressman Rajna Krishnamurthy of Illinois, his spokesperson, told me that he was driving all the way to Washington, D.C. overnight. And so, we'll see what happens. Last night, House Democrats held a closed-door caucus meeting, and I really only saw a few dozen members of Congress there. A large number were delayed because of flights. So we'll see if folks make it in this morning. But we might even see members of Congress going straight from the airport to vote on the bill.
All right, and there's a lot at stake here. Nicholas Wu, thanks for joining us. And for more on this, CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand is at the White House. Natalie, good morning. Now, the Senate vote was a win for President Trump. What are you hearing from the White House?
Well, the president has been very outspoken on social media and also on camera yesterday in reacting to that Senate vote, and also saying that right now it appears the bill is on schedule to meet his self-imposed deadline of July 4th. But that's really only if House Republicans unite. They can only afford to lose about 3 votes. And already we've seen conservative hardliners come out against some of the Senate changes, concerned about the increased amount to the federal deficit, and also moderates concerned about the changes to the Medicaid provision. So the president, as we know, during the first time that this bill passed in the House version, it required a lot of personal phone calls by the president. Remember, he went over to Capitol Hill to talk to the House GOP conference, and he was really involved in the lobbying to try to get that bill to move forward. He was asked yesterday if he anticipates there's going to be a lot of arm twisting this time around. Take a listen to some of what he had to say.
The bill passed, and I think it's going to do very well in the House. We'll see how that works out, but it looks like it's ahead of schedule. Well, they're going to ask for certain changes, probably. I don't know. I mean, I guess what would happen, if that happens, you then have to run it fast past the Senate, so it never ends. I don't know if that's going to happen.
So it was a little hard to hear there, but you heard him talking about if changes are made to the Senate version, then it's going to have to go back to the Senate. So he's hoping that that doesn't happen. Right now, there are no public events on his schedule. Of course, that could change, but that could also mean that today he anticipates making a lot of phone calls as, again, he tries to move this forward, Michael.
And Natalie, another headline we're following, the pilots who flew the Iran bombing mission will attend the White House's 4th of July celebrations this week. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the White House confirming that those pilots who flew that mission have been invited to the 4th of July celebration here hosted by President Trump, as well as some additional personnel from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where those pilots are based. We've also learned that a flyover is expected during the 4th of July celebration featuring that type of aircraft, the B-2 bomber. That was used in the mission to target those nuclear sites in Iran. The president, we know, has been praising these pilots and has really been looking for a way to celebrate them, Michael.
All right, Natalie Brand at the White House. Thank you.